Have you ever seriously tried to imagine what it takes to live in the coldest inhabited place on the entire planet? I don't mean just for a visit or for one brutal winter, but for thousands and thousands of years. Well, today we are going deep into the heart of Siberia to unpack an incredible story of human survival, one that's written not just in their culture, but deep inside their DNA.
Okay, let's just start with this number because it's almost impossible to wrap your head around it. Minus 71.2 degrees Celsius. That's minus 96 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the coldest temperature ever recorded in Oymyakon, Russia, a village that people actually live in year-round. It's a kind of cold that honestly feels like it belongs on another planet.
You know, a local resident really summed up the entire philosophy of survival there perfectly. You just don't fight this kind of cold. You can't. It's a force of nature that you have to respect and you have to adapt to. The real question is, how on earth do they do that? So, welcome to Yakutia. It's a republic in Siberia, and it's home to places like the city of Yakutsk and that little village we mentioned, Oymyakon, which has rightfully earned the nickname the Pole of Cold. This is easily one of the most extreme and, one of the most sparsely populated environments on Earth. Think about this for a second. Life here just plays by a totally different set of rules. The ground isn't just soil, it's permafrost. It is permanently frozen solid. So forget about farming like you and I know it. That's completely impossible. And in the dead of winter, they live in almost total darkness, with the sun just barely showing its face for a few hours a day.
Which of course brings us to the biggest question of all. How have people managed to build lives, raise families, and create entire communities in a place that seems so completely, fundamentally hostile to our existence?
It's a real puzzle, right? We're not talking about some temporary research station. We're talking about indigenous people who have been there for millennia. The answer, as it turns out, is this fascinating mix of human ingenuity and just raw biology. So let's start with the stuff you can actually see.
All right, so first up are the visible answers. And humans, we are incredible innovators. Their diet is super rich in fat, things like reindeer, horse meat, even frozen raw fish, which provides all the calories you need to generate body heat. Clothing isn't about fashion. It is literally armor against the cold, made of multiple layers of fur. Their houses? They're built up on these huge concrete stilts so that the heat from the building doesn't melt the frozen ground underneath it. Even something as simple as driving a car is a huge challenge. You have to leave the engine running pretty much 24/7 or it will freeze solid. And even burying the dead requires lighting massive bonfires for days just to thaw the earth enough to dig.
But here's the kicker. While all of these cultural adaptations are absolutely 100% crucial, they don't quite tell the whole story. They don't fully explain this level of survival over thousands of years. There is something else going on, something invisible that's given these people a serious edge. You see, the real secret to thriving in the Pole of Cold isn't just about what you wear or how you build your house. It's written into the very code of life itself. It's in the human genome.
And we know this because of a groundbreaking study published in PLOS One. Scientists did a super deep dive into the genetics of indigenous Siberians. They were basically on the hunt for specific clues for these little genetic fingerprints left behind by millennia of evolution in this incredibly extreme climate.
Now, to really get what they found, you got to understand this concept called positive selection. So imagine there's a genetic trait that gives one person a tiny little survival advantage. Well, that person is more likely to live, have kids, and pass that trait on. Do that over and over for generations, and that helpful trait becomes super common. It is basically evolution in the fast lane.
And in a place like Siberia, this evolutionary fast lane produced something truly incredible, a genetic trait that essentially works like a personal built-in furnace.
The study didn't just find one little clue. It found a whole bunch of them. But the biggest signals, the ones that were practically screaming positive selection, were all pointing to one specific area, the genes that control how our bodies process energy and create heat.
And at the heart of it all is this one specific version of a gene called CPT1A, and it is incredibly common among indigenous Siberians. Now, this isn't just a small change. It completely rewires how their bodies convert the fat from their food into energy. It actually supercharges a process called non-shivering thermogenesis, which is a fancy way of saying it generates body heat without you having to shiver. It's this beautiful example of how their high-fat diet and their DNA work together perfectly, creating this powerful, natural defense against the cold. This whole story of adaptation just fine-tuned over countless generations, it really should be this triumphant tale of human resilience. But the story takes a really sharp, And honestly, an alarming turn, right here in our modern world. Because the biggest threat to a people who are perfectly adapted to the cold is no longer an even colder winter. It's a world that is getting hotter and fast. Climate change isn't some abstract idea here. It is a direct, in-your-face, dangerous reality.
I mean, just look at this contrast. It is staggering. For literally thousands of years, the challenge was surviving record-breaking cold. Now, in that exact same region, they're dealing with summer heat waves hitting 38 degrees Celsius. That's over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. And this extreme heat, in a place built on frozen ground, has kicked off these massive, out-of-control wildfires that are totally changing the landscape.
And all of this leaves us with a really, really unsettling question. Generations of evolution created a genetic masterpiece, perfectly preparing these populations for a world of ice. So what happens to that legacy, and to the people who carry it, when their world starts to burn?